respected Dr. Anand Reddy, who brought all of us together here and who is the moving force behind this festival of ideas, where we will be churning out thoughts, concepts, and bringing some clarity to ourselves. Also on the dais, one of the doyens of the science behind the Indian arts, Professor Bharat Gupta ji, our Vice Chancellor of Nalanda University, Professor Dr. Abhay Pratap Singh, Professor Chandrika ji and all her colleagues in the department at the Pondicherry University, Shruti Bidwaikar ji and friends from the city of Pondicherry and from other places as well. A very good morning to all of you. It is both a great privilege and also a pleasure to be here and to be sharing with you some of my thoughts about how do we really become the legacy bearers of the thought process of Sri Aurobindo. And I am not saying this just as a matter of formality. I am really very happy to be here. And one of the reasons is that there are many unique things associated with the way we are conducting this exercise. There are less formalities, and the fragrance of informal relationship is all around in this atmosphere. Because when formalities become devoid of informal relations, they become technicalities. And I'm not seeing that aspect over here, which makes me very happy. Also the crowd, I must say, that here I'm not seeing usual seminarians who keep hopping from one seminar to the other seminar. Here are very young, talented, and people who are keen to understand Sri Aurobindo, his life and his mission. Equally important is the presence of young professors of the local university, and of course, the organization, Sakar. Your name is also very beautiful, Reddy ji. It is not something where these days people first decide about the name and try to find out what kind of abbreviation we can make out of it. It is a really evolved kind of a name, Sakar, Sri Aurobindo Center for Advanced Research. Very important. And let me tell you that I am aware that although in a very knowledge-oriented kind of atmosphere over here, I am conscious of the fact that delivering speeches is very easy. Listening to them is very difficult. I am sure you will agree with me. You know, there goes an anecdote which is associated with the life of well-known scientist Albert Einstein. It's an anecdote, Kimvadanti. I don't know whether it is true or false, maybe not true. But they tell that when Einstein came out with his relativity theory, he was almost on a lecture delivering spree. Every now and then he was going to some place and delivering a lecture. And when he was about to go to a place and deliver his 126th lecture, he shared with his driver who was fetching him to the place that I am so very bored because every time I have to go and play the same long play record kind of a thing, and people, their faces are completely blank, they don't understand anything what I am saying, but still I have to repeat because the theory is very new, it is very complex. The driver, he said, "Sir, humbly if I may put it, I have been at the receiving end, we have to attend every lecture of yours. And by the time you have delivered 126 lectures, I have almost by-hearted your lecture." line by line, I can say whatever you have been saying. And those were not the days of Facebook and all those things. So anyway, not the village where we are going, there people don't know how Einstein looks like. So if you are really tired, allow me to present myself as Albert Einstein. I will deliver a lecture. You test my ability, how best I can do that. Einstein thought, let us see if the fellow is really so very confident, let me examine, let me assess. And therefore they exchange the seats. Einstein becomes the driver and the driver becomes Einstein. And when they reach the venue, naturally the organizers receive the driver with all decorum. And then at the beginning of the seminar or whatever, he is introduced and then he comes to the podium. Einstein is sitting there in the audience. And the driver delivers flawlessly a brilliant lecture, line by line. Whatever Einstein says, he repeated. It was by-hearted by him. And there is a round of applause. And the driver takes seat. And then the organizer comes and he tells, what a brilliant lecture. Now it is the time for questions and answers. So naturally, a question comes from the audience. And the driver comes to the dais and says, to the podium and says, this is a very simple question. Why should I answer it? Let my driver answer it. So the moral of the story is that delivering speeches is comparatively easy. Listening to them is very difficult. Thankfully, I am aware of this fact and therefore I try to make it as comfortable as possible to you and also trying to do justice to the subject matter which I have been given. Friends, as we know, India has been in the grip of a serious crisis, and the crisis is that of Atma Vismruti, which is the utter lack of consciousness about not just the strength of herself, but also about her very own identity for the last several centuries. And this ailment was properly diagnosed by many, including, of course, Sriaurobindo. As early as in 19th century, he had rightly analyzed, saying, and I quote, our actual enemy is not any force exterior to ourselves, but our own crying weaknesses, our cowardice, our selfishness, our hypocrisy, our purblind sentimentalism. All these weaknesses were the result of the weakening of the realization of self, self-identity and the power within. As they say, great men think alike. And there were many of those times who shared the right diagnosis of Sri Aurobindo. One of them was Ananda Kumara Swami. I am sure I need not explain about who Ananda Kumara Swami was, a Sri Lankan historian and philosopher who explained the nuances of Indian art to the Western world. He had once said, and I quote Ananda Kumara Swami, this was in 1919, exactly 100 plus years before. And you will realize this situation has not changed. Kumara Swami says, and I quote, speak to the ordinary graduate of an Indian university or a student from Ceylon of the ideals of the Mahabharata. He will hasten to display knowledge of Shakespeare. Talk to him of religious philosophy you find that he is an atheist of the crude type common in Europe a generation ago, and that not only he has no religion, but is lacking in philosophy as the average Englishman. Talk to him of Indian music. He will produce a gramophone or a harmonium and inflict upon you one or both. Talk to him of Indian dress or jewelry. He will tell you that they are uncivilized and barbaric. Talk to him of Indian art. It is a news to him that such a thing exists. Ask him to translate to you a letter in his own mother tongue. He does not know it. He is indeed a stranger in his own land. This was published in Modern Review, which was a journal of that time, which used to come from Kolkata. India's evolution to Sri Aurobindo was synonymous with India's self-realization, India's awakening of her own strength, in other words, India's rebirth. All through his life, Sri Aurobindo untiringly worked for India's rebirth, that too in multiple ways. In fact, working for the rebirth of Bharata could perhaps be the most appropriate description of the life mission of Sri Aurobindo. For 6 long decades, from his student days in Cambridge to his passing away in 1950, his will for the fulfillment of India's destiny never wavered. He braved many challenges, faced criticisms and calumny, had to weather sufferings, and yet he poured all his energies towards his life mission. The laboratory of the soul has been India, Sri Aurobindo once famously said. He has a unique perspective of the idea of India. According to him, Indian culture is simply the culture of man's inner richness. Indian culture to him is the true reflection of the realization that the entire universe is divine. Tree, bird, man and star, and our Mother Earth, whom the West has for 2000 years regarded as a chunk of intimate matter created to serve our ever-expanding greed. And there comes the commonalities between the worldview of Aurobindo and Mahatma Gandhi as well. As we know, many of the Gandhian ideas and viewpoints are also kind of matching with that of Sri Aurobindo. Aurobindo might not have said it in so many words, but for him, as a student of social science, if I may say, the eternal journey of mankind to move from Nara to Narayana was a true evolution. He was an integrationist to the core. For him, Sukshma and Vishal, Shashvata and Kshanabhangur or Ashashvata or momentary, an individual and the society were just different manifestations of the same tattva or the element. He had the ability to discern the commonalities beneath the apparent diversity. He once very succinctly observed, and I quote, "Without the opulent vitality and opulent intellectuality, India could never have done so much as she did with the spiritual tendencies. It is a great error to suppose that spirituality flourishes best in an impoverished soil when the half-killed and the intellect discouraged and intimidated." Elaborating further on the essentially holistic approach of human life, Sri Aurobindo had said, and I quote, "I have always laid a dominant stress on the spiritual life, but my idea of spirituality," and this is important, "my idea of spirituality has nothing to do with ascetic withdrawal or contempt or disgust of secular things. There is to me nothing secular. All human activity is for me a thing to be included in a complete spiritual life." According to Sri Aurobindo, true spirituality never rejects new lights, never turns back to added means or materials of our human self-development. For him, it was a constant interplay of new and old. Explaining this interplay, he says, it means simply to keep our center, our essentially way of being, and our inborn nature, and assimilate it all that we receive and evolve out of it all we do and create. I can go further and further, but the essential point I want to make over here is that Sri Aurobindo's robust confidence in the strength that India possesses is reflected even at that times in the assessment of India by many in the world, mostly from the domain of philosophy and social sciences. American historian and philosopher Will Durant also had very candidly acknowledged the influence of India as place of origin of several spheres of knowledge. And I quote Will Durant, India is the motherland of our race and Sanskrit the mother of Europe's languages. She was the mother of our philosophy, mother through the Arabs of much of our mathematics, mother through Buddha of the ideals embodied in Christianity, mother through the village community of self-government and democracy. Mother India is, in many ways, the mother of all of us, unquote. This is coming from Will Durant, not some jingoistic, nationalistic kind of a thinker over here in India. The idea of India's evolutionary march encompasses continuity with change, the ever-aging, never old. This is a beautiful coinage shared with me by Sri Arif Muhammad Khan, the governor of Kerala. He said, how do we describe India? India is a land which is ever-aging, never old. And we find the same reflected in what we say as Nitya Nutan Chirapura. So we are renewing ourselves every time, and yet we are from the ancient period. We are the oldest. While few other civilizations could not sustain, what is it that made the journey of Indian civilization unstoppable? The answer lies in the internal relevance of Indic perspective of human life. This philosophy mirrors India's worldview, something that has made India a land of civilizational culture. Back to the roots was the essential message aggressively conveyed by Sri Aurobindo to fellow Indians. This is because he was deeply conscious of what was coming to India and how harmful it was eventually, how harmful it may eventually prove to be. Without mincing words, he had warned, and I quote Sri Aurobindo again, in the stupendous rush of change which is coming in the human world as a result of the present tornado of upheaval, ancient India's culture attacked by European modernism, overpowered by the material field, betrayed by the indifference of her children, very important, betrayed by the indifference of her children, may perish forever along with the soul of the nation that holds it in its keeping. The famous poet said, and I'm sure all of you must have heard about it, "Kya baat hai ki hasti mitati nahi hamara." What is it that helps us to sustain? It is the spirit which we have to appreciate, understand, and in a way try to ensure that it reflects in our lives, in our day-to-day conduct as well. Things have deteriorated after Sri Aurobindo left us. We have all realized this. Through what is known as woke culture, structured attempts are being made to destroy all that human culture has cultivated so very painstakingly all through the millennia. This contrived sense of advancement is now eating into the vitals of every civilizational culture, and India is not an exception. When we talk of evolution at a certain level, it also means preserving our culture. Because, as they say, the journey of any civilization, and more particularly that of Indian civilization, is from the past through the present to the future. So there is a continuity, and we have to accept that. We cannot just rubbish because something is very old, and we cannot just embrace because something is very new. Let us have that viveka, that sense of some kind of judgment. If India has to evolve as Vishwamitra, there was a reference to Vishwaguru, but I would say that let us first of all try to become a Vishwamitra. First and foremost, it is for we all Indians to understand the fundamentals of Indian worldview or the idea of India. Sri Aurobindo has reminded us, saying, our past with all its faults and defects should be sacred to us. But the claims of our future with its immediate possibilities should be more sacred. For this sacred future of ours, there are at least 10 important and almost unique aspects of Indian worldview that we must understand, also make the world understand with all its seriousness. These unique characteristics have made India what India is. Take away these unique characteristics, I am afraid India may not remain India. And therefore, since, as I said, from the past through the present to the future, if the legacy of the great philosophical contributions of Sri Aurobindo is to be taken to the generation next, we are talking about Gen Z. Now I think next Gen Z, what is that? Somebody tell me Gen Alpha. Is it correct? So, if this Gen Z, which I believe most of you are, have to carry this to the Gen Alpha, then we have to first of all understand what is it that we need to carry. And there are 10, I believe, key aspects to Indian worldview, the philosophy of India, the idea of India, which I would like to share with you. This, of course, is my assessment, but in many ways, if I may venture to say so, that matches with what Sri Aurobindo's philosophy has been. The first and supremely important is the idea of spiritual democracy. This country never was and never could be a theocratic state. Our approach of Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti rejects any monopolistic approach absolutely when it comes to ways of worship. This principle of Ekam Sat is echoed even in several social contexts in the writings and speeches of great thinkers like Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. But let me hasten to add over here that we saying Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti and others saying that my way or highway may not go together. It is for every other way of worship to accept the fundamental truth that Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti is the only way to go. There cannot be any other way. And we cannot accommodate simply for the sake of accommodation, which is unaccommodable. Let us be aware of that. And therefore, our challenge is to convert in the sense it is to influence those who reject the idea of Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. That is the onerous task destiny has asked India to shoulder, as I understand. Like in any democracy, spiritual democracy also abhors any element of fear or terror when it comes to spirituality. To quote Sri Aurobindo again, while the Jew invented God-fearing man, there is, in English we say, he is a God-fearing, he is a law-abiding. India is the country of God-knowers and God-lovers. We don't fear. Of course, we revere. We are conscious of the prowesses, of the divine prowesses. But we never fear. Krishna Sakha. We call Bhagavan Shri Krishna as Sakha, as our friend. So that is the beauty of Indian spiritual traditions. Unlike the concept of God, the concept of truth for Hindus, Buddhists and Jains is inexhaustible. No Indian teacher ever said that his message was final and there could be nothing beyond it. Anyone is free to start a new teaching, give a new message or found a new school of thought, said Sri Aurobindo. So, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, the spiritual democracy is the first tenet. The second tenet stands on the shoulders of the first. It is the element of unity inherent to our diversity. Many times we are so deeply influenced by diversity that we believe that diversity is more important than unity, forgetting the fact that beneath the diverse things, there is an element of unity which has been flowing eternally. We are here, people speaking many languages. And if you just go through whatever the sayings and proverbs that we have in our languages, there are many commonalities. We say, Naach na aaye angan tedha. I'm sure there must be a similar coinage in Tamil as well, or in Gujarati, or in Bengali, or in whichever language you speak. Now, do you think that the similarity of such sayings and proverbs is because of thanks to some GR issued by the Department of Languages? No. It is because of our commonality of approach towards human life. We have common sayings and common proverbs in our languages. And therefore, let us not get unduly impressed by the diversity. Diversity is just the diverse manifestation of the innate spirit of unity. Let us not forget. The third important tenet is our approach of striking the balance between individualism and collectivism. Again, this is a great challenge the humanity is facing. People are becoming ultra-individualistic. They are loners. They stay in a family many a times. They are under one roof and yet they are individuals. Because there is no element, there is no culture of sharing and caring. And it is the Indian family system which provides for that. Even in our culture, we are in the month of Shravana. In Shravana, if the Panchami is very important, in Bhadrapada, maybe it is the Chaturthi which is important. In Ashwina, it is the Saptami which is important. So every single day is important when it becomes a part of a month. Likewise, every individual is important. Just understand, unlike the Western culture, we just don't have aunts and uncles. We have Masi, we have Mami, we have Fufa, we have Chachera Bhai, Mamera Bhai, not just cousins. Because we respect every individual relationship, but then it is a part of a collective relationship which we know as our family system. So, the ability to strike balance between individualism and collectivism. Individuality, private space, all things are important, no doubt about it. But can we forget that although we enjoy the liberty of listening to the music, whatever we want, through those ear pods in our ears, there is some different bliss when we attend a musical performance, a mehfil as what they call, and resonate our pleasure with each other. So there is another bliss as well. It is not just individualism. There is the strength of collectivism also, which this civilizational culture has understood very well. The fourth important aspect of our worldview is the idea of gender equality and justice as symbolized by Ardhanari Nateshwara. Many a times we believe that this women live and women rights and all those things have come from somewhere else. No. They have the fragrance of the soil of this very Bharat Mata. Ardhanari Nateshwara, where we recognize the fact that there is a masculine element in every woman and there is a feminine element in every man. So, if every individual has both the elements, where is the question of who is superior and who is inferior? We are all equal. This is what our culture has told us, although we might have forgotten this. So, this is the fourth. The fifth element is about the question of social equality. While equality of all human beings is undisputed, Indian concept of social harmony or samajik samarasata goes beyond apparent equality, which is just apparent. On the subject of equality of human beings, the Bharatiya perspective of assimilation through harmony and emotional connectivity goes beyond social justice. Samarasata is all-inclusive and social justice is at its core. So this is the fifth. The sixth is our idea of confluence with Mother Nature. Many times in our families also, and many would recall this, our elderly persons start their day with a prayer to Mother Earth. Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam Padasparsham Kshamaswame. Mother Earth, I am going to put my feet on you. Please forgive me. What is this? This is what now they call as sustainability. But then there were some civilizational cultures which talked about conquest of nature. We never. We always revered nature, worshipped nature, have been grateful towards Mother Nature, and therefore sustainability is in a way a part of our worldview, our approach, which we should never forget. The seventh important tenet is the unique concept of Antyodaya. What is Antyodaya? Antyodaya means those who are most deprived should be considered as the most deserving when it comes to the distribution of the fruits of development or prosperity for that matter. So there is no quarrel like they have between capitalism and socialism. We know the limitations and the strengths of both. We don't reject anything either, but we evolve some kind of a sangama, confluence of both these economic thoughts of capitalism and socialism, and give our own flavor to that, what is called as Antyodaya. If you are the most deprived, you stand chance as the first one to be the recipient of prosperity. That is Antyodaya. That is our way of transcending and moving beyond the binary of capitalism and socialism. The eighth important tenet reflects the concept of trusteeship. Again, I remember Mahatma Gandhi here. The idea of trusteeship, and it was not something, of course, every respect to Mahatma Gandhi, it was not invented by Mahatma Gandhi. It is there in our philosophy. When Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, or for that matter, any such Indian monarch, used to rule, the idea was that I am just a trustee. There is a beautiful play in Marathi on Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, where Shivaji elaborates on the idea of king. And he describes what is a king. He says a king, a Raja, is just the Upabhoga Shunya Swami. What a wonderful idea. Swami is owner, owner in the sense of responsibility. A person who is responsible, but without self-aggrandizement. Upabhoga Shunya Swami. Swamitva is there. Unfortunately, today we find many Swamitva Shunya Upabhoktas who are just relishing in the fruits of power and not serving the cause of people. But then this Upabhoga Shunya Swami is other way of describing the idea of trusteeship, which again is something unique to Indian worldview. The ninth important is the idea of duty taking precedence over rights. This is because commitment to human duties on the part of an individual can alone guarantee protection of human rights of many. If every individual discharges his or her duties very well, rights of others are automatically taken care of. The message of Bhagavad Gita too is about working without attachment to the fruits or the outcome of our activities. This is the Kartavya Bodha, and the paramount importance of the same can just not be undermined. And the 10th in this series is the idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which was the motto of our G20 very recently. And why Kutumbakam? They could have said Vasudhaiva Samajam, Vasudhaiva Gruham. No. The scriptures say it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam because Kutumbakam is the ideal model of interpersonal relationship as what we understand. Where even a child who attains the age of majority, our scriptures say, Prapte tu shodasha varshe putra mitravat achare. Guardians, parents have to treat their kids when they attain the age of 16 as mitra, as friends. This is our idea of individual recognition in a way. So these are the 10 things I believe which make what India is all about. All these 10 basic tenets emerge from the fundamental philosophical view of human life, as also the role of India is poised to play globally. However, there are many critical challenges too, and we should not be unmindful of them. Without meeting these challenges effectively, India cannot assert its own philosophy. Firstly, our collective failure in effectively presenting a flawless idea of India with its rich heritage. I was just realizing that we say Satya Shiva Sundaram, Satyam Shivam Sundaram. But then, Satyam can become Sundaram if there is an element of Shivam. And Shivam is all about activity. Shiva has to undertake the Tandava. Shiva also has to have that Damaru and make noise out of that. So unless Satya articulates itself, the Sundarata, the Saundarya, the beauty, the bliss, which is there in the Satya, the truth, cannot become obvious. And therefore, art of articulation is extremely important, which I believe it somewhere goes with the idea of Shivatva as well, because Shiva was also the deity of Kala for that matter, is it not? Nataraj, as I understand. Aurobindo's treatment of humanity's future evolution is unique in this context. In Ken Wilber and Sri Aurobindo, a critical perspective, Rod himself, a leading interpreter of Aurobindo's philosophy, states that Sri Aurobindo is as yet the only spiritual visionary to have outlined in detail the nature of a divine consciousness, life and society to be realized as a result of the descent of the supermind and to have developed a yoga for hastening that descent. So again, mind and yoga, consciousness and its manifestation in action in a way. Some physical element is as well there. Before I conclude, I must also mention that Sri Aurobindo's idea of evolution mirrors the concept of Dashavatara or 10 incarnations of Sri Vishnu. Well-known figure to people in Pondicherry, Michel Danino, has beautifully written on this, a French person who has made India his home. From fish to a reptile like tortoise, boar as the mammal, and a half animal, half human Narasimha avatar, the dwarf Vamana avatar, and finally human. These Dashavataras are in fact symbolic of progressive unfoldment of human consciousness or evolution, in other words. And how do we do that? The way forward, therefore, is restoring India's Atman. If world has to remain beautiful, India has to be India only. We cannot ape simply because it is coming from somewhere else. We have to realize what we are and what is the destiny of this great country. But many a times, there are misperceptions which are spread about India by people in Western countries. Mark Tully, celebrated writer and journalist, has famously said in his book No Full Stops in India, says he, and I quote, "The characteristic genius of Indian mind is not to shake the beliefs of the common man, but to lead them by stages to the understanding of the deeper philosophical meaning behind their beliefs." But the Western world and in the Indian elite who emulate it ignore the genius of the Indian mind. They write a full stop in a land where there are no full stops. Thank you very much.